In this episode, we are discussing lifestyle, more specifically the young adult, the high school athlete, and what it takes to become a college athlete. We also talk about the support system. What support system do they need to accomplish their goals? But also, at what point does the support system become suffocating? I think that this is an open discussion, and I don't think we have all the answers as well. So we'd love to get your take on this too. You can email me, spiker@rawlingstigers.com. I hope you enjoy the conversation.
Let's finish it.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of The Closing Pitch. My name is Spiker Helms, and this is a show about people, culture, and how to create a winning lifestyle. I'm coming off an episode of the Tiger interview series with Brian Fitzmaurice. He was on our podcast a while back.
Episode 63.
Wow, you rolled that off like it was like you did. Did you even?
I made
know?
a post about it yesterday.
Oh, I was like, man, how did you know that I was going to talk about that? But anyways, yeah, 63. So if you want to go listen to that, we are going to be. It should be up by now, but if not, we are going to be releasing that episode very shortly. We talked about in-season training, just where we are in the middle of this year. Fitz really breaks down. What really matters from a parent's perspective and what some misconceptions are, which I want to talk about today, which is a huge thing. It seems like I'm constantly talking about this recently. I don't know if that's just what's happening in the waters. Maybe it's this time of year, but like even my wife was talking about it and she didn't even know I was talking about it in work. And she was talking about this topic, which I think is a serious issue, and you can see it in cancel culture as well. I don't want to get political on this, but it's a huge issue, and I want to address it. The topic of this episode is you are the driver, not you. If you're a parent listening to this, we're talking about from a player's perspective or a high school athlete's perspective, college, professional, which is you can only control what you can control. You can only be you. And at some point, it's hard because the people that we care about and seeing them fail is very hard to deal with, which then leads us to this and in-season training and college and
your path.
Your path. I feel like parents want their kid to be successful so bad, and they know that college is the route that you could potentially be successful. Potentially. That's the key word, potentially. And then when you talk about athletics, and you're 7% of people, if you play college athletics, you are the 7% of the population. So you have an easy in when it comes to interviewing. Because when they see that you played college athletics for 4 years, they're gonna at least put your resume at the top, so your probability of getting the interview gets a little bit higher. So right now, with 4 years, if you're a freshman and you're heading into going down the school route and trying to figure out you want to play college athletics, is that really what you want to do? Is that really the thing that you want to make your lifestyle, which is what Fitz talked about? I don't think a lot of kids want to have that lifestyle, to be honest with you.
I'm not sure they understand it.
Maybe I'm being a little harsh on that. Maybe they do want it, but they don't know what it takes.
They definitely don't.
And it's hard to communicate that from my end. And one of the things that Fitz said, I asked him, I was like, so how many hours do you think a high school athlete trains?
The enemy for us is not overtraining. The enemy for us is no training.
Actually doing it.
You're not training. Most kids do not adhere to an in-season strength conditioning program. I would say the majority of baseball players don't. Okay, so the enemy is not like, yo, I'm training 4 or 5 days a week. I'm like, bro, you need to cut back a little bit. That's a little excessive.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We could look at 2, max 3 a week, and that's perfectly fine. That's what my minor league guys and my pro guys are doing. That's plenty, dude. If you've been training 3 or 5 years and you're doing 3 in the in season, that's enough. If you push too hard, you're going to start overtraining. That's a very rare conversation I have with some of my guys. Like, you're doing too much.
So it's almost like you got to find that in between no training versus CrossFit training. Like literally hardcore
100%.
CrossFit pterodactyls that are literally pulling out 12-hour days.
I'll have conversation with some guys like, yo, dude, I'm hitting heavy deads and this and it cleans. I'm like, bro, that's not good for baseball. You know what I'm saying? But that's a rare conversation. You know what I'm saying? Most guys, this sounds really negative, aren't that driven. You know what I'm saying? So the enemy for most athletes is not doing enough during the season. Strength and conditioning. I'm not saying you're not working hard. I'm going to jab at baseball players again.
Hey, it's all right. It's a baseball podcast. So, and my point on all this is that parents set their player up and they say, all right, you're gonna see this instructor, you're gonna see that guy, you're gonna do this, which is very noble, and they should do that. That's a support system. You're showing them a path, but at some point you've got to get out of the way. Like a couple parents will text me and they'll say, hey, can you please check out Jimmy's foot? Like something's going on with Jimmy's foot. I'm like, why are you texting me during a work day about your son's front foot? It's not your front foot. It's not your mechanics.
Right.
That's Jimmy's mechanics. You're supporting him. You're helping him. My parents never, ever talked about my mechanics. It's literally zero. I talked to my dad last night about it.
Yeah, what's going on? I am working on a podcast right now. Oh, really? I was actually wondering if I could ask you a question on the record and put it in the podcast.
Sure. What's the question?
At any point, did you ever talk to an instructor or a coach about my mechanics or ever really nail down a certain thing that you saw in a game with me after a game?
No.
Not at all?
No. If at all, it would have been with Dennis Huey because I was coaching with the team. Or it might have been, it was always good stuff. So even when when I was coaching with Fagan and you.
What did you really focus on when it came to my games and like after games? Like what were you like primarily focused on?
That you were having fun. Having fun. That was the most important thing.
Gotcha. Well, that helps me out with the podcast. I appreciate it. So.
Well, am I on air now or later?
I have the phone recording, so I'm going to grab the recording and then put it on to the podcast.
Okay, you might want to just tell it this way. From a father's standpoint, I never was a backstop dad. You know that.
You want that to be on the record that you were never a backstop dad?
I was never a backstop dad.
Explain a backstop dad for me.
That is when you come to bat, the dad gets behind the backstop and he grabs onto the fence like a monkey and leans into it and tells you what to do and what you didn't do, but mostly what you didn't do because you missed a ball or such. But it's totally the father was instructing from the backs. I've seen that happen a number of times, and it's really the same thing if you extrapolate it out to the position player. So when you come in, the dad would come down out of the stands and talk to you about what you did wrong and what you should do right. Who basically kind of micromanaged the evolution of players' game. I never did that. Never even did that when you came in from the field and into the dugout with me as a coach.
Here's probably a really good question. What did you notice about the parents of the players that thrived in the game, minus the skill set? How did their parents react to things?
Okay, so there's a number of questions in there. Let me take it from this standpoint. What I've noticed in the parents who did coach their kids, they were insecure about the ability of their kid.
Mm.
And they, being much older, failed to put themselves into that age group of the kid that they're in. They didn't see the whole picture. So they suffered from an insecurity in wanting their kid to do certain things better. It was all good. I mean, it was noble for them to want their kid to do better. But what I saw that was egregious was that they lived serendipitously through their kid. Even if
So it was a point of detachment. They couldn't detach. Like, they were supporting them really well, but the pitfall was
the kid didn't think that
they couldn't detach at certain moments.
well, the kid could not see that they were that it was for their best, for their good. The kid, all he saw was that he heard, this is what I did wrong. Whereas you, it was clearly, this is what you did right. So in effect, if you think about it, in effect, the parents that did that to their kids on the team at the time you had to make the conclusion, well, my dad doesn't do that, so I'm either bad or good. And then when you started having success, and I did not do those type of things, you must have determined in your own mind, subconsciously, consciously, I don't care, that you're doing the right thing. But most importantly, your mom and I both wanted to make sure that you were having fun what you were doing.
What's the why? Why do you think he did that? I can tell you why, but why do you think so?
My thought is that he didn't care what I did. He didn't care if it was football, didn't care if it was baseball, didn't care if it was ballet, if I got into ballet. He even threatened me to do ballet. I think they just wanted a point to go across me that this is what hard work looks like. This is what games look like, which is the fun part. That's what it takes to be good at what you want to do. And they supported me with those things.
I think if you look at it, they got you an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
They gave you the opportunity to try it, to go after it. But what we're talking about right here is ultimately you, not them, are going to determine how far you go with that through your actions, through your choices, through the hours you put in, you taking the initiative, right? Like players that honestly just take the first step of caring and taking the initiative of their career and asking these simple questions of, what do I need to do here? What do I need to do there? What have you done in the past? You were a successful baseball player, so what have you done? The players who have done that and literally taken control are always the ones who succeed. They're always the ones who get to that 7% that you're talking about. It's not the guys who literally have their parents do everything for them, or the guys who want their coaches to do everything for them, or the guys who think that they just, because they play in a great club organization like the Raleigh Tigers, that the Tigers are just going to get them to where they want. The Tigers don't do that. I mean, we do a lot of great things. We don't do that. We literally set them up and give them every opportunity to do so, but ultimately, it's up to them. That's what we're talking about.
But then you have someone's going to argue, well, they're just a child. Well, at what point do they stop becoming a child? In Catholicism, going religious, because I was in a Catholic school, you become an adult when you are confirmed. When you are confirmed, you are now an adult in the eyes of the church. Same thing with the Jewish religion. They have the same thing. They have their bar mitzvah. They are now considered an adult. They have moved on to that point where they are now an adult. They have transferred from being a child to an adult. So when you have like high school kids who, and this is why I think from a culture standpoint, we see people living with their parents all the way up until they're 33, 34 years old.
I'm 33.
Which is like,
that's bad.
Which is nuts. And it's true. There are people out there that are 30 to 31 years old that are with their parents still to this day. Now, again, there could have been some hard times. There could be some problems there where they were off on their own, and then they they hit a rough patch, so they had to go back home to make sure that they're able to get back on their feet. That's totally different. But when you have someone that's literally living in your parents' basement until they're 31 years old and they haven't moved out ever since college, that's a huge issue culturally. It's a huge issue. And I think the reason that I'm so fired up about this is I watched a Netflix documentary with Rick Singer. Do you know this story?
We talked about it briefly before.
Oh my
but
gosh.
Go into
Like I got fired up because it is the prototypical thing of what's happening in our culture right now. Do you know the story?
You talked the college admissions scandal
Yes.
deal, right?
So
Okay.
this guy, Rick Singer, who is an independent consultant, basically to help you with your college admissions.
Mm-hmm.
And he helps you along the lines of like ACT prep, SAT prep. So independent contractors that help you with that are good people. But he went to the furthest extent to have a guarantee. I'm going to guarantee that you get to college. And it was only for high profile families because they are the only ones that could afford to get into this using Rick Singer to have a guarantee that they're not going to fail.
Sure.
So these parents, high net worth people, literally would hire Rick Singer to make sure he called it the side door. So you have the front door, which is what typically everyone does, is I submit my application. The school looks over it. They see my test scores, and either it's you accept it or you don't accept it. So it's typical.
Right.
Then you have the back door, which is donations. So if you donate to a school,
Yeah.
it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get there, but it is a nice gesture that you could potentially, your application gets up on top of the top.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like $40 million, $50 million donations to these universities. All right. Then you have the side door with Rick. Rick will get you into the university if you give him $3 to $4 million. So it's way better than the back door. And it's
a little cheaper, I guess.
It's cheaper. and
What a
you're-
deal.
And it's more of a guarantee. And the front door, you just don't know if you're going to really make it, right?
Okay.
And so these parents would pretend that their kids were athletes. They never played there was one guy that his kid never played a sport in his entire life. And what Rick did was, backtrack a little bit. What Rick did was he was a former basketball coach at a major university. I don't know if it was a major university, but it was in Sacramento. And so he knew the whole athletic department backwards and forwards, knew exactly where the weak points were in an athletic department. Mm-hmm. Where do you think the weak point, our knowledge, where do you think the weak points are in athletics?
Generally, like women's athletics? Is that what you're talking
Smaller
about?
schools.
Smaller
Smaller
schools?
sports.
Yeah.
Smaller sports.
Small sports, yeah.
Smaller sports.
Got it.
So like sailing, water polo.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nothing against those sports.
Sure.
It's just they're not revenue
Yep.
generators.
Yep.
So they have to have fundraising. They have to have it. So what he would do is he would contact these coaches at like Yale, Stanford, like the Stanford's sailing coach, Yale's soccer coach.
Okay.
So these smaller things where the university,
Yeah.
like it was important, but it wasn't like at the top of the list.
Sure.
And so he would bribe them, and each athletic sport has walk-ons, and they need to have walk-ons because it helps with the tuition, but also it helps them say like, hey, we're giving an opportunity to someone that could potentially be an athlete. We'll have them come in, and it sounds really good, like noble, like, oh, this player is athletic. He has decent grades. He might have a 33 on the ACT, has a 4 GPA, was in all these other things, and he does play a sport. Let's move his application to the top, and he can walk on, and if he makes the team, great. If he doesn't, no biggie.
Sure.
Well, Rick exploited that and basically got these kids that would make a donation. So he would They would pay Rick $3 million. Rick would then turn around, pay fundraising, gave a check donation to the athletic department for that sport. That kid would then be on that team, but would never show up to practice. So this, one of the stories is that he would get water polo gear and ship it off to the family. Then the family would hire a photographer, have the kid go into their rich people pool, and then he would jump up like he was a water polo thrower, and they would take pictures, and then he would Photoshop it onto one of the water polo players, like real water polo high school players, and then they would submit it, and then the kid would get accepted. The whole point of this story, why I'm bringing it up, is that you're not letting your kid stand on his own damn 2 feet and accepting. And the hardest part about this is what kills me, is that the documentary, the person who did this did a really good job. They showed kids, this like breaks my heart, like thinking about it. These kids that are literally sitting in front of a laptop, and they open up their portal to like Northwestern University or Stanford and see if they've been admitted. And then they don't get in, and they've done everything they possibly could to get in. And then you have these kids who are
nothing,
who are undeserving,
do nothing. Yeah.
Undeserving. And they get in. One of the prime examples was, I think it's Lori Loughlin of Full House.
Yep.
Her kid who's a great YouTuber, very good YouTuber. Like, she's really good at it. And she didn't want to go to school. She didn't want to go to college. And they forced the issue, and she was one of the main linchpins that they got. And Olivia had no idea what was going on. Potentially, she didn't know what was going on. But I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt because she was a rising YouTube star. Mm-hmm. She still is. Why can't we just give the child, and again, this is coming from a person that doesn't have a kid. So again, think about it from my perspective, is that I don't know how that feels yet. So please be okay with me giving an outside perspective on this, is that we need to have our players, have our kids stand on their own 2 feet. And if they fail, they fail. If they don't make it into Stanford, they don't make it into Stanford. You know how many people didn't go to college and are multi-millionaires? I could literally name off 10 people right now on who didn't go to college and are very successful in life. Like, college is not the end all be all. It just isn't. Like, you can point to so many different directions on it. Man, I'm just fired up about this. I don't know where else to take this on this, but it's very frustrating as a coach. It's very frustrating as a person who's thinking about having a family. And I talk to my dad about this all the time. Obviously, my mom's not here. I would talk to her too as well, and like what her thoughts were. But they never jumped in and just took over. Never. Like, never took over.
But they put you in the right path.
Exactly.
They set you up to take those next steps.
And I guess at what point does where does the line drawn of like what's the right path versus I'm taking over this I have to do something.
Well, kind of go back. So you talked about like, so obviously they're children, they're young, right? We can't expect them to have the wherewithal to go ahead and ask these questions and know that this is the path that they need to take. That's what the support system's for. That's what your parents are for. That's what your club's for. That's what your coaches are for, right? To kind of initiate that conversation, right? To kind of, okay, well, what do you think about this? Or, okay, you're just getting into the game. You want to play catch after school today? You want to go have fun, play catch, right? But the problem lies is if you, the parent or the coach, are always the person having to initiate it. if you're the one that every single time you're like, hey, Johnny, you want to go play catch? Like, let's go do it. Or do you want to go hit? Or do you want to go to the weight room? Do you want to go work out today? Let's go work out. It's going to be really good for you. If you're the one who always has to initiate that, that's where the issue is.
And you have to initiate to some degree, but
you have to start.
You have. There's a point in the sand where you say, this is the line. I'm getting you to this line, and then everything else is you're on your own.
And I've done that a ton with players. I will give you a lot of what I would consider starter information. And it's information to just kind of pique your interest to see where you're going to take it. And then I sit back and I watch. If that player comes up to me and you can tell that he's thought about this and he's really running wild with this information and taking the next steps, let's go. I'm all in on it, right? We've said this in previous episodes. When you initiate those questions, I'm going to open up every piece of information I have for you. But if I'm the one who has to keep coming back to you to help you out on recruiting, to help you out with your swing, to help you out with your strength, whatever it might be, that's the problem. That's where these parents are going wrong. In that whole situation you just described, my only assumption is parents want the best for their children. These people obviously have the means to do some different things that most people don't. Mm-hmm. They saw an angle that they thought, well, man, if I just get my child there to that school, well, then everything else is going to take care of itself, right? Then they're set up for success. They're going to be a huge success in life. I'm a great parent, and all I got to do is find this Rick Singer guy and give him $3 million, and we're set for life. We're good. The problem is, one, you don't know if your kid wants to do that. Two, your kid didn't earn anything there. So what's going to happen? Let's say that happened and they didn't get caught. My guess would be the kid shows up at school, doesn't want to do all that work, doesn't want to go through the next 4 years putting in the endless hours of actually getting through it.
So they keep on finding an angle. They always try to find
and they find the next little shortcut. Well, guess what? There isn't a short. At some point, the shortcuts run out.
Yeah.
There is no shortcut. That's what we talk about with players all the time. You have to be the driver, not me, not your parents. I have this conversation all the time. It's actually one of the most awkward conversations I ever have in our recruiting meetings, where I literally look at the player, and I know the parents are looking at me from over here, and I look at the player and I go, listen, I love your parents. They're great people. They've got you to this meeting. They've got you to this point. But, and parents, don't take this the wrong way, I don't want to talk to you right now. I want to talk to him. If you have questions, I don't want to hear from them. I want to hear it from you, and only you, because it's not their career. It's not their journey. It's yours. It's not mine either.
And that's a great learning moment, because that's where a parent could jump in and say, hey, did you contact Dave yet? Hey, did you think about this yet? And asking them questions. And if they keep on like deflecting, no, then maybe this thing isn't for them.
And that's okay.
And that's perfectly fine. Like, here's a prime example. I wanted to go to the University of Notre Dame. I wanted to go there right when I saw the movie Rudy, and then I just started learning up on the whole university. Was so enamored with it. But then when I got to high school, it was very evident that I did not like school. Like, I did not like it. I hated it. I had to learn how to like school. I wasn't going to the University of Notre Dame. So when my mom pushed me, like, oh, have you thought about what you need to do to get to the university? I'm like, yeah. And she never pushed me on it. But she did know that I wanted to go play college baseball. And she's like, hey, did you email coaches? Oh, no, I didn't do that. I went all in on it. And
but they didn't do it for you?
No, they didn't do it for me. She didn't sit there and say, all right, this is what you're going to write. This is how you're going to write it. I think you should send it like this, not like this. They never did that. It was more of, hey, here's an idea. Now go run with it. And if you don't go run with it, no sweat on my back.
No big deal.
No big deal. We'll figure out what you want to do.
Find out the next thing.
We'll figure out what you want to do. What's your passion? What's your goal? What's your thoughts? They constantly had that conversation with me. Literally would be sitting in a car for a 40-minute drive to a ball field, and my mom would bring it up, and I'm like, oh crap, another conversation like this. But it served its purpose.
What did it do? It made you think, right?
Oh, it made it. She might like, I don't know how it was on the other end, like seeing my facial expressions or hearing my tone of voice. I'm sure it wasn't very pleasant. I'm sure it was very like, I'm a typical teenager,
Yep.
just totally out of it, just basically average. I'm trying to be too cool for school. But I was listening.
Yep.
And I was thinking. And it got to a point whenever my parents weren't there, I'd literally be journaling because I saw my mom journaling.
Mm-hmm.
So it's those little actions that you do that someone's going to pick up on. And I noticed that with living, getting married and living with my wife. Not your wife, my wife. That'd be awkward. Sorry, Di. Is that I pick up little tendencies that she does.
Yep.
And subconsciously, I'm like, holy crap, that's a really good idea. I should do that. And I'm sure she does the same thing with me. She probably sees something that I do, and she's like, oh, that's a really good idea. I'm going to naturally put that into play.
It wouldn't be a good idea if she force-fed it to you.
Oh, no.
If she made you do it, or if she...
No. And that goes back to the conversation that we had before we went to bed. It's like, she wanted the answer. I love you, but I can't give you the answer. I just can't.
Because it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. You're going to think about, you're going to go down that path, and then at some point it's going to fail on you, and then you're going to look at me, and then you're going to resent me.
In all honesty, and most times in these types of examples, if you do it for them, that is all that stuff. That is as far as it goes. You're just getting that process done. And if we look at, again, because this is a baseball type podcast, obviously, because we work in this business, but when you look at players and you look at this long, let's just say we're talking about a player who starts playing when he or she is 7 and plays all the way through college, age 22, 23. There are so many windy roads, ups and downs, hurdles that they have to cross, failures, successes. What's that?
It's like the Bitcoin price, just so volatile.
It's a windy road, okay? But there's so many things that person is going to have to overcome on their own. There's so many things. And I'm telling you, if you as the coach, as the parent, as even a teammate, if you're there and you're trying to literally take over everything for them, you are doing them a massive disservice. A massive disservice. And that is why I will tell a player, I'll give you ideas. I'll give you hints. I'll push you down the path. But the road stops there for me for right now, until you take the initiative to come back. And that is a tough thing to tell a player. And normally, going back to those meetings, when I say that statement, by the way, I see the biggest sigh of relief on the parents. Mm-hmm. It's so interesting, because you would think a lot of times you're going to get parents that go, well, why can't I control it? It's not your kid, it's my kid. I'm definitely going to be in there and help him out and do all this stuff with him. You don't get that answer. You think you might, you don't. You generally see them kind of sit back in their chairs, have a little smile, and they're like, all right, Johnny, you get that? You hear that? It's your career. You do it. We'll be here with you, but you do it. And now that player has a choice. Some players, in all honesty, I never hear about recruiting again. They never come and take that next step. And again, that's fine. It's the same thing if you're a 7th grade player deciding, or 8th grader deciding, do I want to play in high school? Do I want to put in all those hours? Do I want to take away time from my social life, my just being a teenage kid? It's the same deal. Others, I immediately start getting texts from. I love throwing that answer out there. I love giving high school players my phone number and be like, anytime you want, seriously, shoot me a text. Give me a call. You got a question? You need help on something? Anytime. You call me. Mm-hmm. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to answer that phone every time. I'm going to respond back, and we generally have great conversations. But you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to call them. Because if I do, then that player all the time will rely on me for answers. And I don't want that. I want them to know that answers are here. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That I have answers, you have answers, the club has answers, your parents have answers. We all can help. We're a big support system for you. But you have to enable that support system. You have to be the driver. You have to be the starter. Because that soul life lesson will take you farther than anything else. Taking initiative, taking that first step, even if you fail, even if you succeed, whatever it might be, will literally drive your life. That is a lesson that I want to instill in young athletes today, more so than anything else.
It's being able to present something to them. That's why I like podcasting. And really good podcasters, what they'll do is they'll interview somebody that has a new book or a new product or whatever. They introduce the person. Then they leave it up to their audience members to make the choice of, do I really want to go down that route and read that guy's book, or is he just full of shit?
Right.
Or I'm really interested in that guy. That's a brilliant idea. The podcaster doesn't literally scream down the throat of his mic and say, you have to read this book. This book is absolutely amazing. If you don't, you're missing out. Like, no one trusts that person. Mm-mm. They just introduce it. They say, this is what I've gotten from it. This is who this person is. If you want to take the next step, this is where you can find his information. And then they talk about a whole bunch of stories and stuff like that. That's literally how a podcast is built. A really good one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to deter parents from learning what's happening in the baseball space.
For sure.
Like, I love it when parents are at the lesson and they ask really, really good questions.
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
why does this back elbow do this? Like, if I do my back elbow, like if it goes into this motion, what's the result of that? Like, those are really good questions. But when you start sending a text that says, hey, Jimmy's freaking back elbow keeps getting messed up. Can you take a look at it for me? I'm not your car mechanic. I'm not a person that's going to repair your car. That's not what you hire me for. What you hire me for is to teach lessons, give a basic concept of skill acquisition and skill mastery, and I'm going to teach life lessons in the midst of it that help me throughout my career. That's what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. If that doesn't jive with you and you want a mechanic, go to a mechanic. I'm not your guy. So when we talk about helping a player out, present them with opportunity. Ask those good questions in front of him when you ask the instructor, because then what that'll do is that'll make the other player say, oh, why is my back elbow doing that?
Mm-hmm.
And it gets them started. Like my really good clients, my good players, that's what their parents do. They ask questions, and then next thing I know, later on down the road, when they get out of their shell and then they start becoming a man, or they start becoming a woman, they start asking those questions. And that happens at 14 years old, 15 years old, 16 years old, 17 years old. It doesn't happen with an 8 or 9 year old because they don't know.
No. That is, by the way, personally, that's one of my favorite times when that happens. When that relationship gets to that level, it is like we talk all the time about, at what point do players just take these huge jumps? Like, they're steadily getting better, and then whoom, they go up. That's it. That is always the time. And it literally almost has nothing to do with physical ability, in my opinion. It has everything to do with now they've taken control. They're the ones who are totally invested in their career, which you think would be easy, but it's not. And it's harder and harder as we go through. These days it is rarer and rarer and rarer, in my opinion. But if you get to that point, that is when your career just goes skyrockets. And the funny thing is, if you listen to any professional player talk on this subject, they all have the same backstory. They all come from very similar circumstances. If you talk about how their parents approached their little league career, it's all the same. If you asked how their coaches approached their career, it's all the same. They're all surrounded by people that gave them opportunity, that gave them some ideas, and then they ran with it. And they had a great support system that if they had questions, that they helped answer, right? But the key is they did it. No one did it for them. No professional baseball player got there because they were lucky enough to have an in with a coach who knew a guy and, hey, you should go get Billy onto the team. It doesn't happen that way.
It's community. This is what I love about the Dominican Republic culture, is that those players are trying to get off the island, and you have a community that's trying to get that player off the island. They don't do it for them.
Mm-mm.
There's just an absolute 100% drive of, I'm going to get this damn thing done. And I'm going to really rely on the community. And you'll see these instructors in the Dominican that are having their kids hit off tires. They'll have them run on rocks, sand.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't tell them what to do. Like, they don't go to their house and say, you're doing this today. They just say, do you want to get off the island? If you do, come see me. And they work their tails off.
Don't, that's fine too.
That's fine too. You're going to live on this island for the rest of your life. I mean, there's a lot of great things when it comes to resources. A lot of great things that come with having a whole bunch of things that support you. But the biggest thing is on the community side of things, which is why I like doing this podcast, because it feels like we're bringing back that culture of, we're going to help supply you with the resources, but we're also going to tell you the real truth on it. And that, yeah, you could buy that product, but is that going to get you to the show? I don't know. You have to go do this today, but at some point you're going to have to take over.
Depends on how you use it. Depends on what you do. It's you. It's not anyone else. It's that simple. And again, when you start to take the initiative, when you start to become the driver, there's a certain level of care that comes with that. And when you start to really, really care about every single thing that you're doing, again, it's always going to produce the results. And if you don't have skin in the game, and if you don't take the initiative and someone else is doing it, you simply don't care enough about it. You don't. So when you fail, well, whatever, who cares? I don't care. It doesn't matter, right? Because you haven't put in that time. It's that simple. You see it all the time. I see it in lessons. I see it in games. Players who have, parents who have just done everything for them, or coaches that have done anything for them, they fail, whatever, on to the next thing. The player who's put everything on himself or herself and done all the work and put in those hours and hours and hours and asked all those questions, when they fail, you see it. You see how awful that feeling is. And then you see them want to overcome it. It's that simple.
And that's where it goes. That's what if you're struggling with, like, you don't care, it's probably because you didn't put enough work into it.
100%.
Didn't put enough thought into it, enough time into it. Enough sweat equity into it. Like, think about it. If a kid put in just 1 hour a day for skill work or strength performance, and it was on his own, and he failed or she failed, they would be in a position where they would figure out how to get it done.
I saw it last night. Me and my wife were out eating. It's March Madness is starting. There was a play-in game to get into the tournament. It was Drake versus Wichita State. And Wichita State got the last shot to win it. As the buzzer goes off, they missed. Every single Wichita State player basically broke down on the court. Like, couldn't move because of all the hours that led up to that moment. All the hours. That's the care. You think those players were given those opportunities? No, they earned them. Do you think that they got to Wichita State because a coach got them there or a parent got them there? No, they were given opportunities to help themselves. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, that last shot, when all those guys go down on the floor, that's just not the full season. That's literally every single player has a story on that court, and that led them to that moment of, I was in a middle school gym shooting, and I had to beg the janitor to open up the gym so I could shoot during the night.
100%.
I had to do speed ladder drills when it was raining outside just to get an opportunity on the high school basketball team. And then being able to make that game-winning shot when a scout was in the stands. And now I got to go to Wichita State. Now I have to earn a spot. Oh my gosh, there's 5 different dudes out here that are outworking me. I thought I was the best worker. Okay, I got to outwork these guys. And then I'm waking up at 5 a.m. I'm doing all my homework. And then I make the squad, I get the starting position. Now I have to make sure that my team wins. Now I have a community around me. I gain more strength. Now I'm slumping. This guy helps me out. Coach helps me out. I'm talking to him in the coach's room and trying to make sure that my game's back on. He's going to start me again. Oh, we made the playoffs. We got in. Now it's a one. Now we get to. We're dancing now. Last shot missed off the rim.
But you know what? Now they've overcome so much, and they've gone through so many hurdles because they've done it that no one else has done it for them. That my guess would be it's a painful moment because a lot goes into it, but they'll be able to overcome that too. They'll be able to take the next steps in life.
Now imagine if you just inserted Wichita State against Drake with just a bunch of guys that didn't even earn their spot on Wichita State.
They were just given the opportunity.
And put them out there. What happens?
Oh, whatever. Sorry, missed the shot. Sorry, man.
Sorry, man.
Sorry, buddy.
We'll
get him next time.
I'll get it next time. We'll have to wait a little bit longer,
Right.
but I'll get it next time.
We'll get him next time, guys.
Well, if you think about Michael Jordan, all those shots, I hate that cliche that everyone uses it, but like just think about all the shots that he missed. Those shots that he missed, it wasn't like he just like didn't care. Like that dude freaking cared, but then he was able to make the switch in 60 seconds and say, all right, I get it. Like I love it when LeBron James, when he misses a shot, he walks off the court as fast as he can and trying to recalibrate and thinking about, okay, when's the next shot? I'm really pissed off at myself. Like he's probably really mad at himself when he's walking off that court, and then he gets into the locker room and it switches. Like I love it when on social media goes crazy when a team wins and one of the players stays out and watches the team that won. Like I get what social media is getting at, but for me, I would get off that field and really think about what happened. I wouldn't watch that celebration. I'd be thinking to myself, what happened to my game? Like, I'm going to figure this thing out.
But again, both sides, that player's
He cares.
He
cares.
That's all it is.
That's the most important part.
That's
he
all
cares.
matters. Yep, and that care is not given; it's earned. It's earned through hours. It's earned through initiative.
Especially the walk-ons.
Yep.
Which makes me even more pissed about Rick Singer.
Oh yeah.
It's like how many freaking walk-ons didn't get a walk-on because of
I'm gonna have to watch that.
Lori Laughlin's daughter.
I'm gonna have to.
Sorry, Olivia's probably a really nice person, and she probably didn't know what was going on, but it just gets my juices flowing. Anyways, what's your closing pitch on this?
I mean, I think we've just said it. I won't go into mass detail, but you know, if you can take our context today and what we talked about and put it into what's going on in your life, whether it's a parent listening, whether it's a player listening, whether it's a coach listening, if you can take that into context and really just apply it in the way that you're looking out for the best interest of that player. You're looking out of ways to get them more excited about what they're doing, get them to be more passionate, more caring. And that, again, that comes with them taking the initiative, not you. They're not going to get the level of care or interest if you're the one driving it for them. If you're there being a great support system for them, great. And if you're the player, you need to be that driver. You need to be that one who takes the next step. And ask yourself, if I'm not interested in doing that, if all of a sudden I have to be the one, like we talk about the have-tos or the get-tos, right? When we make statements. If I'm saying, oh, I have to go to the gym today, or I have to go to practice, it's probably not for you. Honestly, it's probably not. And you only get a finite amount of time in this life, and don't waste it on it, would be my advice. But if you're the one who, because you have a great support system and you're now saying, I get to go to practice today, I get to go to the gym, I get to go work with this coach, and guess what? I've been thinking about this moment for like the last 24 hours, and now I have all these questions that I want to ask him or her because I know that they can help me. And man, I'm really, really excited about it. And you just go on with that storyline. That's the powerful moment. That's the player that makes those massive jumps, and really, that's what they're meant to do.
You can't force someone to do something and expect it to be successful. It just doesn't work. I really love what Fitz said in the Tiger interview series on game adoption. The first thing that you have to do is you have to make sure that you want them to adopt the game. If you want to get them to podium, which is the Olympics, if you want to get them to the podium, the first thing that you have to do is you have to make sure that this game is a right fit for them. So game adoption, super important. That adoption phase doesn't end right away. They need to play that all the way throughout. And then when they get to the point where they become a man or a woman in culture, in previous cultures, it was literally 15 years old. Then you can start talking about the serious aspects of things. I mean, that's where college recruiting is starting at 14 years old, 15 years old, which I think is mind-boggling. But again, if we want to go back to the premise of being a man or a woman, it fits the bill. So at that point, then you can start doing skill mastery, sports performance, really attacking as hard as you possibly can. And some kids the small percentage might be in that early age group where they're 12, 13, even 11. They can start working on the performance aspect of things, and they're really engulfed. And the adoption phase took very short time. But each person's completely different. Mm-hmm. Being able to know the person and supporting them with everything that you have and providing them opportunity is massively important. I think that's way more important than controlling and saying you have to do this, you have to do that. So just coming from a coaches and director standpoint, we see a lot of parents, we see a lot of players. I'm very intrigued by human nature and culture, and I'm always trying to learn and get a little bit better on it.
And again, last thing, I totally get it, man. It's coming from a place of love, which is a great thing. Mm-hmm. Just understand that won't help. It never does.
Yep. Guys, this is this episode of The Closing Pitch. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you liked it and you think, hey, these guys are pretty awesome. I like Spiker. I like Dave. I need to send this to Steve. Send it to Steve. We'd love to have Steve listen to the podcast. Make sure you subscribe if you have not subscribed, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for watching or listening or both to The Closing Pitch. If you would like to get your closing pitch featured on the show, we use a podcasting app called Anchor, where you can submit your statement or question via audio. Or what you can do is comment in the comment section of this post. We also accept direct messages. Please give us the A-OK if you do send us a DM to use your statement or question on the show. Last thing, please give us a review on your platform of choice. 5-star preferably, and we value your opinion, and this allows us to reach more people. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you in the next episode.